Why, hello there, and welcome to this video. My name's Leah. I'm a new progressive YouTuber, and I recently started doing a Wednesday, Saturday show where I talk about the big stories, whatever's trending, whatever's important, whatever's going on at the time, and I talk about it from a progressive point of view so that I can try to inform, inspire, do whatever. I don't know, just try to do something with my political energy. I've been following politics for like 6, 7 years or so, and I want to do something with that energy. I want to feel like I'm able to make a difference or something like that. So that's what I'm here to do. And this is my third segment. This is my last segment. I am really excited to wrap up this show today. I'm extremely tired. It's almost midnight where I'm at, and I've got to be at work at 6:30 in the morning. And I'm still recording. I need to edit all this and get it uploaded and do thumbnails and do all that stuff. So I'm hoping that I can at least get an hour and a half of sleep for work tomorrow. But yeah, we're going to be talking about a story that I think is really important. It's sort of like a follow-up story from a story that I covered in my last show, where I essentially talked about how a war criminal genocidal maniac Bibi Netanyahu was visiting the states to give an address to Congress. And we also talked about how there might be a follow-up video to that video. That's what this video is. So I'm not going to make a video actually covering Netanyahu's speech or his address to Congress or whatever. I didn't even watch it. I don't even want to watch it. I feel like I don't even want to give it any airtime. I don't want anyone to see it. I feel like that needs to be buried and just ignored. I feel like he needs to not get any airtime to try to defend himself for the war crimes that he has committed. But I do want to cover the response to Netanyahu, and specifically I want to talk about Harris's response. There's been a lot of speculation about how Kamala Harris might differ from Joe Biden on the Gaza genocide, or maybe not at all. We're not really sure what she's going to do or how she's going to handle the situation. We can only hope that she's going to be better than Joe Biden, be less Zionist, and be less co-signing of a genocide. I mean, that's definitely what we are hoping for. We want this situation to come to a conclusion. We want a ceasefire. We want humanitarian aid brought into Gaza. We need to save these people because these people are starving to death. There's famine everywhere. The Gaza Strip is just destroyed entirely. All the homes, 86% plus, maybe even more homes are destroyed. All the hospitals, all the schools, everything is destroyed. We need immediate ceasefire. We need aid in there yesterday, honestly. This is a really, really, really big deal. So we got a statement from Harris regarding Gaza, and I'm just going to play it for you right now.
I will always ensure that Israel is able to defend itself, including from Iran and Iran-backed militias such as Hamas and Hezbollah. From when I was a young girl collecting funds to plant trees for Israel, to my time in the United States Senate and now at the White House, I have had an unwavering commitment to the existence of the State of Israel, to its security, and to the people of Israel. I've said it many times, but it bears repeating. Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization. On October 7, Hamas triggered this war when it massacred 1,200 innocent people, including 44 Americans. Hamas has committed horrific acts of sexual violence and took 250 hostages. There are American citizens who remain captive in Gaza. Sagi Deko Hen, Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, Idan Alexander, Keith Siegel, Omer Nutra, and the remains of American citizens Judy Weinstein, Gad Haggai, and Itai Hen are still being held in Gaza. I have met with the families of these American hostages multiple times now, and I've told them each time they are not alone, and I stand with them. And President Biden and I are working every day to bring them home. I also expressed with the Prime Minister my serious concern about the scale of human suffering in Gaza, including the death of far too many innocent civilians. And I made clear my serious concern about the dire humanitarian situation there, with over 2 million people facing high levels of food insecurity, and 500,000 people facing catastrophic levels of acute food insecurity. What has happened in Gaza over the past 9 months is devastating. The images of dead children and desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety, sometimes displaced for the second, third, or fourth time. We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent. Thanks to the leadership of our President, Joe Biden, there is a deal on the table for a ceasefire and a hostage deal. And it is important that we recall what the deal involves. The first phase of the deal would bring about a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. In the second phase, the Israeli military would withdraw from Gaza entirely, and it would lead to a permanent end to the hostilities. It is time for this war to end, and end in a way where Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination. There has been hopeful movement in the talks to secure an agreement on this deal. And as I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. So to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire, and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Let's get the deal done so we can get a ceasefire to end the war. Let's bring the hostages home. And let's provide much-needed relief to the Palestinian people. And ultimately, I remain committed to a path forward that can lead to a two-state solution. And I know right now it is hard to conceive of that prospect, but a two-state solution is the only path that ensures Israel remains a secure, Jewish, and democratic state, and one that ensures Palestinians can finally realize the freedom, security, and prosperity that they rightly deserve. And I will close with this then. It is important for the American people to remember the war in Gaza is not a binary issue. However, too often the conversation is binary, when the reality is anything but. So I ask my fellow Americans to help encourage efforts to acknowledge the complexity, the nuance, and the history of the region. Let us all condemn terrorism and violence. Let us all do what we can to prevent the suffering of innocent civilians, and let us condemn anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate of any kind. And let us work to unite our country. I thank you.
Now, before I say anything, I am curious, leave me a comment down below. What do you think? How do you feel, like what vibe do you get from that statement? I'll be totally honest with you. There's this thing in management that you do called like a compliment sandwich or whatever, where like if you're managing people and you want to make sure that they don't get frustrated with you as a boss or as a higher up or as an authority, you walk up to them and you go like, hey, you're doing great, good job, but also like you could do a little better right here. Like there's room for improvement in this area, but yeah, overall, great job. You're doing a great job. And a lot of people, if you approach them that way, they feel extremely comfortable. They're like, oh, I'm doing a great job. Oh yeah, I could definitely do better doing that, but I am doing a great job. They feel confident even though you have coached them to improve on a certain thing. And I feel like it's not exactly the same, but I feel like in a way that is sort of what's happening here, because like she started the statement by obviously saying like October 7 terrorist attack, horrible. We condemn terrorist attacks. Political violence of any kind is not okay, but like specifically terrorism is, obviously not okay. Like it's not okay. Not okay. And Israel has a right to defend themselves. Of course, like, they have a right to do that. That is true. So she starts off with those obvious truths, and it almost feels like she's giving like she's like prefacing a statement, right? That's the preface for the statement. That's the beginning part of the sandwich. That's the bread, the bun, the first part of the first slice of bun or whatever. And then she gets into the meat of the statement, which is, I will not be silent. And I feel like this is actually what feels to me like what she actually cares cares about, because I think there's actually a slight shift in her tone as she speaks. And at first she's like, she's sort of just saying like, yes, Israel has a right to defend themselves. That's very true. That is a fact. But also, like she specifically said, how they do it matters. How they do it matters. And then she goes into the I will not be silent. And she instead of sort of just like ragging on Israel, she very quickly kind of moves into like, she does talk about the specifics of the crisis happening in Gaza. She specifically talks about, many civilians have been killed. She talks about that there's famine. She talks about all that stuff. So that has all been specifically stated by Harris. And then she immediately kind of moves on to say like, hey, we need a ceasefire deal. We need aid brought into Gaza. That needs to happen now. Like, we need this deal done now. It's really important that Harris confronted Netanyahu about this specifically, because if you have been following this genocide, then you would know that Israel is the reason why Netanyahu specifically, I should say, not Israel as a country, but Netanyahu specifically is the reason why a ceasefire has not happened yet. There have been multiple, I would say maybe 10 or more ceasefires proposed and accepted by both Hamas and the United States, and they always get blown apart by Israel. They always reject the ceasefire, or Israel will just commit some atrocity, like the IDF will commit some horrible atrocity in Gaza, and after that, Hamas will kind of renege on the ceasefire deal and sort of say, well, we don't want to, whatever, and it complicates things. It complicates things dramatically, and it's very clear that Netanyahu has been delaying the end of this war because he knows that the ICC has charged him of for war crimes, and he also knows that like his war cabinet is the only thing keeping him in power. The second this conflict is over, he's going to be ousted from power very quickly. I did want to specifically mention that like there were some protests for when Netanyahu visited, and they got pretty rowdy. I think at one of the I didn't look into the reporting about all of this entirely, but I think at one of the protests an American flag was burned, which is, if you know anything about decorum in the United States of America, if you know anything about American culture, if you actually really care about that stuff, then burning an American flag is like basically the worst thing you could ever do. It's kind of a big deal, and honestly it's pretty telling about how like emotional and how serious this is for the protesters. But yeah, Harris made a statement about the protests. She specifically condemned them, which like read really badly because she hadn't made this statement yet, and the only statement we had seen from her about Gaza was her condemning the protests. So that was sort of like the first thing we saw from her, and that was kind of sketch magetch. Like that made me really uncomfortable, and I was a little bit scared to see that video pop up on my feed. But I was a little bit I was skeptical upon watching it, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see that she seems to want to push for a ceasefire deal really aggressively. But yeah, moving forward, I am really interested to see how Harris reacts to and deals with the Gaza genocide. I would like to see an end to the conflict. It's been going on for 9 long months, and it's just been shocking, appalling, horrifying to see. So this something needs to happen, and if she can be a part in making something happen, making peace a reality, that would be actually pretty massive for her, especially with reclaiming some of these voters who feel horribly disenfranchised by both parties. All right, that's going to wrap up this story. That's all I got to say for this one. I just wanted to talk about Harris and her kind of response to her first big statement on Gaza, so I feel like it really kind of lays out how she's going to approach the situation moving forward. It seems like, she lays out a position, and that's what she's going to stick to. You're not going to see very much mobility from her in terms of issues because she has not a very long time to run her campaign. So when she makes a statement about where she stands on something, you can kind of expect that to be where she's going to stand in November. And so I would expect her to keep like a similar tone and kind of keep a similar message to what we just saw from her right there. All right, that is the end of my show for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did join me, I appreciate you very much. I will be back on Wednesday with another show. I am so tired. I have to be at work in 6.5 hours, and I'm going to start editing these segments to put up on YouTube, and hopefully I can get like at least 2 or 3 hours of sleep or something like that. We'll see. If you like the vibes, if you like the content, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe. Any of those things would help me out a lot. Yeah, my last show did really bad, and I actually don't know why. Like I've been getting kind of like decent views actually on my videos considering how few subscribers I have, and then my last show was just absolutely tanked. It was like you have 6 views on your videos or whatever. And that's kind of sad. I feel like I put a lot of work into these, to be totally honest with you. So I want to try to grow as much as I can. We're on that trajectory for 100 subscribers. So if you want to be a part of that, I would really appreciate that. We're just like, going to set a goal and we're going to move towards that goal. And that's how this is going to work. That's the way the cookie crumbles. So yeah, that wraps this up. This is the end of the video. I appreciate you so much for watching. Thank you. Thank you. And I will be back with another show on Wednesday. I hope to see you then. But between now and then, if you could do me this one little favor, I would just really appreciate it if you drank some water.